Hello, welcome. I appreciate you cutting your lunch short to attend this talk. I'll be showing you some cool demos. We're going to have one of our customers present, so this will be a pretty exciting session. So, I'm Donna Malayeri. I'm the product manager for Cloud Run for Anthos, which I will be demoing for you. Later on, we're going to be presented by our customers at MediaMarktSaturn. They're going to talk about Cloud Run, how it's transformed the way they're building applications. This is my favorite part. They calculated it, and their time to market is now 8 times faster, which I love to hear. So I really hope the product ends up being quite that useful for you. And of course, at the end of the session, please leave your feedback. I especially love positive feedback, but I love constructive feedback, so we can make these sessions more useful for you in the future. So, why did we build a new product? Now, we love building new products, but that's not why we did it. You know, a lot of people are familiar with Google Cloud Functions, and they were kind of wondering, hey, isn't that enough? Why do you need something new? Well, the feedback we heard from customers was when Cloud Functions was applicable to their use case, it was fantastic. But there were so many use cases. They really wanted serverless, and their workload just didn't fit. A common one is when you have existing binaries or existing code. You know, you already have a whole build pipeline in Jenkins. You're producing a container. Everything works. Why should you spend your valuable engineering time redoing that? Another one is people are like, hey, there's containers over here and serverless over here. Why do I need to make that choice? That doesn't make a lot of sense. Another common concern is when you use a functions as a service platform, either in Google Cloud or any other cloud provider, there's always a fixed set of languages that are enabled. You know, what if you want to run some language that's not very popular? My coworker is really a fan of this language called Elixir, which honestly I had never heard of. But at Cloud Next in San Francisco, he did a demo of a chatbot using that. I've also heard of people who have the misfortune of having to run COBOL. But guess what? You can run that in a container on Cloud Run. Now, another concern that we've heard from a lot of customers is, I don't want to be locked in. I don't want to have to stay on this platform if the platform no longer meets my needs. So we have a super innovative approach here. No other vendor has it, which is our platform is based on an open standard, which I'll talk more about. So if you use this product and it doesn't work for you, you can move to something else. It's like having a return policy, you know? Personally, I always shop more when I know I can return something if it doesn't work for me. And that's our idea here. So, what's serverless? The definition that we have at Google is first that it's an operational model. This means no infrastructure management. In fact, on our serverless products, you can't even provision the compute. You don't provision it directly. You provide the code that you want to run, the container that you want to run. The other important thing is that it's fully managed, including security. You know, Intel has been having a lot of CVEs lately, unfortunately. But guess what? That's our problem. It's not your problem. There is a vulnerability in the OS. Again, that's our problem, not your problem. The idea here is that you get to focus on your business value, and you leave all the boring infrastructure stuff to Google, because that's what we're good at. The other is you pay only for usage. You don't have to decide ahead of time how much compute you need. If you just launch your site, doesn't get much traffic, you're going to be well below the free tier. You're not going to pay anything. Now, if your site gets featured on Hacker News, you suddenly get this huge spike in traffic. You don't have to worry about it, because only then do you pay. The platform is going to scale you out immediately. Now, the programming model. The first word might be unfamiliar to you, serviceful computing. This is a term that's become more popular in the serverless computing environment, community. You know, people are saying, instead of saying what serverless isn't, which is servers, let's talk about what it is, which is microservices instead of monoliths. It's using managed services from your cloud provider, like the machine learning APIs. I'll be showing you a demo of that. So you have less to manage. You get to focus on your business problem rather than the boring infrastructure stuff. Now, the last point is where Google is innovative. It's open. We're based on an open standard. We want you to be on our platform because you want to be here. You know, there's some vendors. There's a famous vendor who's a database vendor who loves that they can jack up the prices and customers are stuck. Our philosophy at Google is that that's not a great way to build a product. We want you to stay because we continue to offer the best product that meets your needs. And that's the core of the way that we're building our products at Google. So the reason that we decided to embrace containers is this. If you look at the Google Trends keyword searches for Docker container, you see an exponential, almost exponential spike. And this is because containers are super useful. What you get to do is have a repeatable artifact that you can build in your existing build pipeline. There's a ton of tooling available. And once you have all your dependencies working on your dev machine, you can put that in production and be confident that everything is just going to work. And that's why containers are the industry standard. You know, a few years ago, no one had heard of Docker. Now, you know, why would you use anything else? Because it's really that useful. The other thing is that you get this great local development experience through this standard format. So you don't have to use anything different in order to use this product. So our thought was, hey, you know, with containers, you usually have to use a container orchestrator, and that's a lot of work. And you know, if that's not what you're used to, if that's not your core competency, if you're not already doing that, let's make that easier. So I'm going to show you a demo of just how easy it is to use Cloud Run. So let's switch to the demo. Great. So here I am in the Cloud Run UI. You can see I have two services already deployed. Notice one is running in a GKE cluster. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So I want to create a new service. I'm going to pick a container image URL. I already have it built. I'm going to just pick the latest version. You can build this either with your existing container platform, container build system, or you can use Google Cloud Build, whatever you want. Just get that container into a container registry, use it, you're done. First off, I'm going to use the Cloud Run fully managed environment. And I'm going to name the service. Now here, notice there's two settings. If I'm creating a public website, which is what I'm going to do here, then I'm going to allow unauthenticated invocations. But what if I'm making a private microservice? In that case, I can use Cloud IAM, and that means that someone tries to hit this URL, the Google front end is just going to reject the request. So your service is completely protected. You don't have to put that protection in your code directly. We handle that for you. So I'm going to make it a public service and create it. Now, in less than a minute, I'm going to have this container deployed. It's going to route the traffic. It's going to create something called a revision. So whenever I want to change the code, I can just easily add a new revision. We're adding a feature for traffic splitting so that you can choose. Now look at that. I'm not even done talking. It's already ready. Now, here's my favorite part. Look at this URL, HTTPS. Let me get a show of hands. How many of you have had to configure SSL manually and set up your own custom domains? Yeah. Did you enjoy it? No. It is one of the most annoying things that you have to do, and it is so boring, and it is not something that you should have to do. So we do it for you. So I click on this URL, and I have my app up and running. Now, this app is written in ASP.NET, which means this is illustrating the fact that you can just take your existing app that you're running wherever you want, and you can just deploy that to Cloud Run, including if you're doing server-side rendering. You know, functions as a service platforms generally make it very hard to run, you know, Flask or Django, whatever it is you're using. You know, our philosophy here is why relearn things? Why change your code if you don't have to? All right, so I already have this deployed in another service, and I'm going to show you here. I have set up a custom domain. It is super easy to use a custom domain. You just go, it just tells you what IP address to put into your custom domain provider, and you're up ready to go. So if you want to follow along, you can go to mosaic.lindydonna.dev. What I've done is I've created a site where you upload a photo, and I'm going to upload this photo because every demo I do features my cat. And I'm going to upload this image. What's going to happen here is this service is going to call the Google Vision API and do image recognition. And then it's going to do an image search, grab 100 images of whatever it was. In this case, it'll recognize it as a cat. And then it's going to create a mosaic, taking this image, using all of those images of a cat. So you get a really nice visual demonstration of the image recognition. So if you zoom in, it's cats all the way down. Now, I know lots of folks, and probably many of you in this room, are like, OK, this is great. But at our company, we have a policy that all of our code gets deployed to Kubernetes, because we just want one place to manage everything. We're already using Kubernetes. It's our standard. We have folks in our department who know how to manage it. So what if I want to do that? And this is a key place. This is one of the other ways in which this product is innovative. On every other functions as a service platform, you have to run in a fully managed environment. That's it. If you want serverless, it has to be on the cloud provider's internal compute. So we said, hey, let's make this product available to people who want to use Kubernetes. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the same exact container that I had earlier. And now, instead of choosing the fully managed Cloud Run, I'm going to choose a GKE cluster. And I can choose one namespace. I'm going to name it GKE Demo. And now notice here I have two slightly different connectivity options. And that's because networking is different on GKE. I can set it to internal, so only other services within the cluster can talk to this. So that's the way you can control access. Or again, in this case, I want to make it externally available. And you can deploy, and it's all done. Now, in addition to the fact that you can run on GKE, once you do that, you get way more options. You can have bigger machines. You can choose more CPUs. You can use GPUs. You get all these additional networking settings. So you get all of this additional control if that's what you want. All right, so let's go back to the slides. And that's what we've done with Cloud Run, which is now generally available. We announced the beta at Google Cloud Next in San Francisco. And now, here we are in London, announcing general availability. We're bringing serverless to containers. There is no other product in the market like this. And our goal, our hope, is that this actually changes the way people think about serverless compute, and it creates a developer-centric experience for containers, rather than an operator-centric experience. So when might you use Cloud Run? Well, it has to be a stateless container, because your container is only allowed to run for 15 minutes, and your container instances, if they're not getting any traffic, they'll get shut down. So when might you use this? Well, websites tend to be stateless. They tend to put all of the state in a database or some other storage. At least that's the best practice. That's the way people are building apps these days. Or maybe it's just an API endpoint. Or your mobile app is connecting to this. That's a really great point about why serverless is valuable and really popular for mobile backends. You launch the app, and if it starts getting popular, you don't have people on call who are desperately trying to increase the number of VMs. And you get a super great, seamless experience for your customers. It's also useful for webhooks, where you just want a little piece of code that runs, like a GitHub action or some other service that you're integrating with. Now, in terms of other cases where you have private services, maybe you have a microservice that's only called by your other code. I showed you how you can secure that. Or you might have asynchronous tasks. Whenever there is a new message in a pub subtopic, instead of writing code to pull that topic and have basically a busy wait in a loop that you're paying for the compute, you can have that asynchronously trigger your code. So you get container to production in seconds. It's natively serverless, and you get one experience where you want it. One of the great things about our fully managed environment is it runs on Google's internal compute, which is called Borg. Now, you may know this, but Google runs a lot of compute. We have products that are very, very popular. And over the past 20 years, we have developed state-of-the-art technology for running these workloads quickly and efficiently. And our thought was, hey, why don't we give this to you? Why don't we give you these benefits? We have unprecedented scaling. No other cloud provider is currently scaling out as quickly as we are. There was a demo at Cloud Next in San Francisco where an engineer showed that you can scale out to 10,000 instances in less than a second. And we're constantly improving this platform for Google Cloud as well as for Google. So whenever we improve something and make it even faster, you just get that for free. You don't even have to think about it. We take on that responsibility for you. You know, I've often had customers say, it used to be when I would launch a website, I couldn't sleep well at night. Even if I didn't get paged, I was just nervous that I would get paged. You know, I've been on call before, and that's true. You get really nervous. They're like, hey, Google has site reliability engineers that are working round the clock in multiple time zones. I don't have to worry about that. Now, if my app has a problem, obviously I get paged, but it's like, you know, a tenth as many times, if that. All right, so we saw container to production in seconds. Let's talk about containers. Why did we choose this? Well, the one great thing is it lets you do any language. You can do COBOL, you can do Pascal, you can use really old binaries. At Google Cloud Next in San Francisco, we demoed a container that had OpenOffice running, which has some really, really old code, 16-year-old code. The container image was 1 gigabyte, and all it did was do a PDF conversion. But you didn't have to change anything to get that working. It's beautiful. You can use any library, any binary. And there's an ecosystem of base images, and it's an industry standard. Now, some of you might be saying, I don't know about Docker files. It's kind of a weird syntax. I have to agree with you. I kind of feel the same way. The first time I saw a Docker file, I was like, I do not want to touch this. Guess what? You don't have to. Even though we are building containers here, there is a ton of tooling that makes it so you just provide your code, and it creates a container for you. One of the most popular ones is the Heroku Build Packs project, which gives you a really nice Heroku-like experience. And that's an open project, open source project, part of the CNCF. And if you use Go, there's a Go library that you can use. For Java, there's Jib. There's a bunch of others. So that's the value of building on this standard. It's that you get this well-known standard developer experience. You don't have to install any tools. Every other functions as a service platform, including Google Cloud Functions, you need to add special tooling to your computer to get it to work. You don't need to do that with a container. All right, so now I want to invite Matthias and Fabian to come and talk about how they're using Cloud Run at MediaMarkt.
Thanks, Donna. So hello, my name is Matthias Riepl. I'm a chapter lead for data engineering at MediaMarktSaturn. So it means all data engineers are in my unit. And this is Fabian Seitz. Maybe you introduce yourself.
I'm a technical product manager within the analytics context, and also part of the analytics leadership team of MediaMarktSaturn, beside also Matthias. And yeah, we kind of introducing you what kind of our business is, basically, and how we adopted Cloud Run.
But it's a story how serverless capabilities changed the way we think about software and application development. But first, MediaMarktSaturn, we are not present in the UK, so maybe a few facts who we are. We are a consumer electronics retailer. We have stores, 1,000, all over Europe, except UK. We have more than 60,000 people working for us, and on the right upper side you can see we have offline and online business, so we are a cross-channel retailer. And the challenge is, maybe you all know, most application landscapes are historically grown and very stuck and not flexible. And so we had 3 years ago hard discussions about how to transform. And it was pretty clear from the very beginning we will fully rely on public cloud capabilities. We started in the end of 2017 doing some proof of concept stuff, tested different public clouds, tested also some stuff like Heroku. And after 6 weeks, we decided to fully go with Google Cloud. And there were two main assumptions. The one is everything will be a container, and Kubernetes will be standard. And you can see in this timeline, so we started in January 2018 to really focus in an MVP approach on production-ready applications. After 5 months, we went live with the first vertical. So it means we created pages of our online shop new on Google Cloud capabilities, and then it scaled. after focusing on the application development side, we started this year with the focus on analytics, AI, and data management stuff, because all these cloud capabilities we have will really speed us up. How does it look like, how we provide cloud capabilities internally? We created something you could call an internal abstraction layer over Google Cloud capabilities. It's more or less a development platform. And the goal was to centrally manage all the things you have to do if we use cloud in an enterprise-ready state. So it means we have centrally managed our security issues. We have, not the issues, but the rules. We have centrally managed the network and infrastructure scaling stuff. We have all this cloud governance stuff in the platform. And we provide everything as best as a service to our internal developers. So the goal was that they finally just have to specify a few YAML files, and the rest is done. The theory behind this, so focus on app development stuff and don't focus on infrastructure and all the things you have to do. So it means we had a lot of challenges in automating this stuff and so on. We were also using serverless, so App Engine and Cloud Function were part of our stack. But honestly, it's like Donna said, it's not so easy because you really have to understand how cloud works. And you go down the OSI layer model until layer 1. Finally, it was an interconnect in Frankfurt to combine all our legacy systems to the cloud stack. And this is a very challenging thing to have this hybrid state, but it's necessary to transform a whole application landscape of 1,500 applications into more or less Google Cloud stuff. We now show you an example how serverless is somehow changing our mindset, how we think, and state a problem. So, Fabian, I want to have real-time data sales dashboards because I want to see what happens, because I want to have real-time promotions, I want to do or react on customer needs, and I really want to drive my business in real time. How would you solve that problem?
So, thanks, Matthias. Basically, I would say first oh, this was too fast. Sorry. First, we need the data from a goods management system. Of course, without data, we cannot display anything. Important here is that our infrastructure is kind of old-fashioned and kind of complex. So therefore, this is a huge challenge to don't interrupt the operational context, because if we display data and interrupting the sales transaction within the stores, it's maybe not a good idea. So this needs to be robust and needs to be quite bulletproof. After getting the data, it needs to be then shipped to GCP to create all this stuff there. And afterwards, of course, we need to then calculate the output to fill the data into Data Studio. To display the data to our customers. And afterwards, we need to have the capability to allow online and offline training for maybe not only reporting data, but also predict the sales for the future. So how we did that from a solution architecture perspective. First, as I said, we need to ship the data from our decentralized databases via Kafka to GCP. The Kafka cluster runs also in GCP. And then, this is the first building block there, get fetched from via Cloud Run API fetcher from the Kafka cluster, and that data will be then pushed to PubSub. Why PubSub? We have two different streams afterward. This is the building block 3 and 5, basically. So we have the operative context that calculates the output for the Data Studio dashboard, and the historization data for the online and offline machine learning thing. So for the operational context, calculating the output for the Data Studio report, we need additional data from our product and outlet API that is necessary to make some groupings and whatever the customer needs for the report. So, and now the beauty comes in. So we really focus on Cloud Run as a fundamental piece of our architecture. We're not only fetching the data from the Kafka cluster, but also fetching the data from the two APIs, calculating some stuff, have some temp information stored within Data Store, and then finally passes the data to BigQuery, that then Data Studio can fetches in real time that data from BigQuery. So this is the core of our real-time analytics, real-time dashboarding use case. And as I said, we also want to do some kind of analytics. So therefore, we have that historization of the raw data. We have a data flow streaming pipe running that fetches the data from PubSub, passes it to GCS for a staging area, and also passing it to BigQuery. That additional analytic stuff can then happen afterwards. So we love really Cloud Run because there are a lot of cool things that happens. As you can see here at the two graphs, this is one beauty also, that Cloud Run comes with predefined metrics that you get out of the box. You need to do anything. So if you deploy your container to Cloud Run, you have, for example, a request that comes over a period of time and the instance time of the billable containers. As you can see, we have not so much traffic during the night, obviously, and kind of a lot during the day. So this is quite cool that we don't need to worry about during, as Donna mentioned, during the night. If there are some promotions or a lot of customers come to our online shop, then it can scale from 0 to multiple thousands of instances in seconds. And this is really insane, because if you have a kind of a Kubernetes cluster, you maybe think 1 or 2 times before if you could fulfill this kind of requests. And also we have, in the peak time, around 8,000 requests per day. That sums up with 5.5 million requests for the whole day. From a cost perspective, this is really great because this only costs $500 per month for Cloud Run. And this is really nothing for the business value that comes out of that kind of use case we have. And to wrap everything up, the whole thing we've showed you here was built from 2 data engineers in 3 days. And this hopefully gives you a sense of how easy it is to use Cloud Run and makes your life really better. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was awesome. You know, as beautiful as that architecture was, you know, customers don't buy your products because of the architecture. You know, when Amazon launched, it was a bunch of hacked up Perl scripts. No one cared because it was a great product. The key here, which I love, you know, with a few engineers, they're building an architecture that's really easy to maintain, which means that you can provide more value to your customers more quickly. Because your job, the thing you're providing to your customers is not cloud infrastructure or beautiful architecture. You're providing something with much better business value. And Cloud Run, as we can see, all of our customers are telling us it's dramatically accelerated the time to market. All right, so let's talk about how it's natively serverless. So when the cloud first launched, you know, there were all these lofty promises. It's going to scale out infinitely. You're not even going to have to think about the servers. It's just the cloud provider's just going to do it. There's all this magical hype. You know, and what they gave us was hardware virtualization. You know, instead of having that virtual machine on premise or using bare metal, you get to use it in the cloud. Now, I don't mean to minimize the benefits of this relative to what was before, but you know, that was really not leveraging the benefit of the cloud. You had to manually provision, configure your servers. You need to upgrade the OS. You need to manage the scalability manually. You know, I was saying that a Kubernetes cluster is hard to manage. A container orchestrator is a lot of work. It was even worse with VMs. Plus, you know, when you have peak times, you have some big sale coming up in retail, you know, you had to plan ahead of time for this. You know, how many of you have gone to some website, you know, and they're selling tickets? That's the most common use case I've seen. You go to the site, and everyone's trying to buy this at the same time. You refresh the page. How many of you have seen? And you get a 500, right? And it's terrible. That company is losing out on sales because they have this peak capacity. And I guarantee you, every time this happens, they're running on VMs. That's why serverless is so great. You focus on your code, not on the infrastructure. You get managed URLs and TLS certificates. Those can be such a pain to do manually. And unless you're just really excited about TLS, it's not something that you really want to be doing as an engineer. You also get redundant automatic failover. As I said, this is a thing Google has been doing for 20 years. We have been running cloud infrastructure at scale more than most other vendors. So we know what these best practices are. We've had outages, but I personally have never gone to google.com and had it be out. And that's that same infrastructure, the same operational experience that we're bringing to you. The key is we also give you a simple developer experience. That's why, with just a few engineers, you can build a full, complete product. And it scales with you, and you pay per use. If you are using a dev environment and it has no traffic, you pay nothing. And as I said, it scales up fast, scales down to 0. It's unprecedented scale out. When we first launched, what we found, everyone was like, oh, I want to see how well this scales, because that's the thing that most serverless geeks are really excited about. Every single person reported that their tool to manage scale out failed before this traffic stopped scaling. So in other words, they reached the limits of their tools for testing how fast it scales out. It's one of the most awesome things. And of course, when you're done, it scales down to 0. So you don't even have to think about how much capacity you need. And of course, you pay per use. The idea here is that it's built in 100 millisecond increments. That's why MediaMarkt had that 500 euros a month, which is just so low. Not to mention, they save so much more money in engineer time, right? So you just pay for what you use. It's based on how much CPU and memory requests you have. So it's really, you really just get much lower costs because you're not paying for capacity that's laying idle. Now, our third pillar. This is one of the most unique aspects of our product. There is no other product in the market that gives you this kind of experience that's portable. So, when you think of containers, you think of Kubernetes. And Kelsey Hightower, who's a developer advocate at Google and is one of the authors of a very popular Kubernetes book, says Kubernetes is really a platform for building platforms. It's not the end game. It's a starting point. It's a great starting point, but it is not the be-all and end-all. And the key is that operators need to understand the platform. And so what I've seen from every single customer that runs Kubernetes in production is that they have to build a developer abstraction on top. Because developers are like, I am not an operator. I do not want to learn how to manage a cluster. I just want to get my code to production. So people build these complicated pipelines. They have to learn a lot of YAML. They have to do Helm. And there's this kind of cobbled together thing. It usually involves a lot of bash. With Cloud Run, you get that experience. You saw how easy it was. I am not a Kubernetes expert, and I am able to deploy these applications and not worry about this. So that's why we have another version of Cloud Run for Anthos. And it runs on Kubernetes. You get more flexibility and control. It's best suited for when you already have a Kubernetes operator. It integrates with Kubernetes access control. It basically works the way you'd expect. It essentially uses all of the Kubernetes concepts, but mapped into a serverless platform. Now, of course, Kubernetes is serviceful. So isn't it a little bit weird to talk about serverless on top? Well, the key is, if I'm a developer on this platform and someone else is managing the cluster, for me, as a developer, it's serverless. Because instead of, say, Google providing the compute, now my IT team is providing the compute. For me, as a developer, the experience is the same. And when you use our Kubernetes product, you get more features. You get custom nodes, you get hardware accelerators, you can use GPUs, you get more VPC options. So you get to build on your existing investment in Kubernetes. Now, you can run Cloud Run for Anthos either on GCP using GKE, or I didn't show it in the demo, but you can also, with that same experience, deploy it on-prem using VMware. So even if you're not on the cloud yet, or if not all of your workloads are in the cloud, we have a solution for you with a super simple developer experience. So if you want the fully managed experience, you use Cloud Run. It's 100% serverless, no infrastructure to configure at all, no cluster to manage. You pay for what you use. You can also use Cloud Run for Anthos. You get a serverless developer experience. The operator, of course, has to worry about servers, but the developer does not, and it runs in your existing GKE cluster. what we've often seen is customers are running in GKE. They have all this spare compute. So Cloud Run lets you bin pack and use this spare capacity in a really efficient way. Now, I showed you to the UI. The CLI is also really easy. You just use a different flag. You either deploy to a region or you deploy to a cluster. And I have to say, I love this command line. You know, it's Cloud Run. You type gcloud run, and you're off and ready to go. Now, you may have heard of something called Knative. As a customer of Cloud Run, you don't really have to worry about this. But this is the underlying API that everything is built on. Knative is an open source project that was launched at Google, but now has over 50 companies contributing. We have multiple partners that are working with us, including Red Hat, IBM, Pivotal, and it's just really growing. You know, when we started, Google wrote all the code. Right now, Google only contributes 60%. That's not because we have fewer engineers, mind you. We've doubled the size of the engineering team. That's because all of our other vendors have jumped on board and said, wow, this is really useful. This is what we need. Now, I talked about how there's a portability of experiences and workloads between Knative environments. So here's the thing. When we talk about portability, there's actually two kinds of portability. There's the kind where you can run in different environments, but it's also the portability of your experience. What I've often heard from customers is that, you know, it's really hard to keep up with advances in cloud. You know, you want to use your existing experiences wherever possible, and that's what you get because you're using this product. Another really useful thing about Knative, and that's one of the reasons that we created Knative, not just as an open source project, but a community with many partners represented, is that we said, you know, it's not that useful to just have an open source project with an open API. What you really want is interoperability and a truly portable experience. So right now, there are multiple implementations of Knative in a fully managed manner from other vendors. At Google Cloud Next in San Francisco, we just showed deploying the same application to IBM. You can also use Red Hat. Pivotal's also working on something. So again, what this means is if Google Cloud isn't the best place for you, or you're already a customer of some of these other vendors, or you want to mix and match, you can. You don't have to choose up front. You can change your mind later. It gives you full flexibility. Now, Cloud Run for Anthos is, of course, priced differently. It has a fixed price. It's priced as part of Anthos. There's two versions of Anthos. There's a version that runs on GCP. It's priced much cheaper than the on-prem version. And there you pay per number of vCPUs. There's a free trial offered for Cloud Run for Anthos until May of 2020, because we really want you to try out the product before you see if you really want to adopt it. We're also working on a developer tier, which doesn't currently exist, because the idea here is if you're just getting started out with a small cluster, it would be really great if you didn't have to pay that price. And if you want multiple clusters for dev and test, which I've seen very frequently, it's really useful not to pay. Because what I hear from customers is, hey, I'm willing to pay this price when I'm getting all these extra features, I'm getting an SLA, Google is managing it. For these small clusters, it would be really nice to kick the tires and do a proof of concept. So we're working on that. And another thing about Cloud Run, for Anthos is that because it's recently launched, unfortunately, you can only get it by contacting sales. But we're working on that as well to make it so that you can just sign up more easily. And this also works with GKE usage metering. So you basically get a really nice integrated experience. So if you want a fully managed experience, no cluster, pay per use, almost no operations, with, of course, a limited instance size, use fully managed Cloud Run. If you want to run in your GKE cluster, you want pre-provisioned resources, you want Kubernetes, you want way more hardware features, you want to use Cloud Run for Anthos. All of these provide the same underlying behavior. They have auto-scaling, they stack driver, the same UI and CLI, custom URLs, and of course, it's all based on Knative. I have never worked on a product that has this seamless of experience in these two environments. And the reason it works so well is because it's all based on Knative. So when you go into that UI in Cloud Run, if you go click, there's a tab that says YAML. You look at that YAML in the fully managed Cloud Run, that's actually the same Kubernetes API as when you use the version on Anthos. And on the fully managed Cloud Run, there's no Kubernetes cluster. As I mentioned, it runs on Borg, but there's a Kubernetes API server. So from your perspective, if you want to move back and forth between these, you just redeploy your container. It's that easy. So that's what you get with Cloud Run. Container to production in seconds. I have never seen a deployment that quickly, by the way, in any cloud product. I love that. It's natively serverless. You get a serverless developer experience when you use Cloud Run for Anthos. On the fully managed Cloud Run, no infrastructure at all. You run on Google's compute. We know how to do that. That's what we do well. And you get one experience where you want it. You want to run in a fully managed environment? You can. You want to run on GKE? You can. You want to run on-prem? You can. If you're like, you know what, I want to go with IBM, I want to go with Red Hat, you can. You can even drop down and say, I'm just going to do Knative because I love managing all these knobs and whistles and just going all out. You can totally do that too. We're not going to lock you in because we'd rather win your business by creating great product rather than you being stuck. Because that's not really fun to build products like that. So Cloud Run is now generally available. Try it out. Go to cloud.google.com/run, and I'm so excited to see what you build. Thank you.